July 29th. That was the day that I was on Fremont Street shooting a TikTok live when suddenly and without any warning, I was approached by 8 to 10 police officers.
Marshals and Metro cops.
Yep. They put me in handcuffs. You've seen the video. I've had it posted since that time. But now, since I have met Kevin,
you finally have time.
And yeah, we've been so busy. But now we're going to do a whole video about July 29th because it's key to the story of exposing Mark Niemczyk that we're trying to do. And it's key to police involvement with Niemczyk and Arcadia Security involvement with Niemczyk, basically supporting him and retaliating against me. In this video, Kevin's going to do most of the talking because, as we said,
you're going to be asking questions.
Yes, the spotlight is on you on this one because
I have the inside of what led to the cops coming to you.
Exactly, and some background. I didn't know why the police put me in handcuffs. I could only assume that Niemczyk was responsible because police were talking to me. They didn't give me a reason for the handcuffing. And one of the things I've been doing constantly is trying to ask police, why was I put in handcuffs? Why was I put in handcuffs that night? Why?
And I have the answer.
Yeah. How is that possible, you ask? Because as you know, Kevin here was working as Niemczyk's bodyguard. I guess scam.
Let me.
You didn't know it was a scam, obviously. You were duped. You were conned by one of the slickest con men in America, Mark Niemczyk, who got you to believe his lies about himself, which is that he's like a war hero, yada yada yada. You know all that. The 9/11 truck scam, the same thing he was doing then. Pretended to be a Navy SEAL, have a war record, decorated, war hero.
Just a bunch of lies.
Of course. And let's not even get into the 9/11 firefighting lie, which is, to me, one of the worst. Because
focus on July 29th.
Yeah, and we want to focus on July 29th. So the reason that Kevin's testimony, eyewitness testimony to that night is so important. He was not there on Fremont when it happened. I was, obviously, and you can see my whole night there in the live.
And you were there because you were looking for me and Mark.
Just keeping an eye out. I was interested in who was going in and out of the Walgreens or on Fremont, who might be connected to Niemczyk, or maybe I would stumble into Niemczyk himself.
And let me tell you this, a lot of what led to the police and shutting down his live that day stems between the time frame of 1:52 a.m. and when he was already mobile on Fremont by 2:18 a.m.
Right.
So here's what I'm here to validate.
Let me do a little bit of background first, because I was on Fremont. Where were you at the time I was on Fremont filming that?
The last address where I was residing at in the time that I was discovering and took snapshots.
Screenshots of my
screenshots, yeah.
Of the live that you still have.
And at the time, I was there living with Kendra and Mike Niemczyk.
Everybody is going to be getting a place that is going to be custom built. This is what you call true love, guys. Many years together and lots of love.
They were having issues paying rent, and obviously I had issues getting an apartment because of some past evictions that we'll talk later, and if we have to on that.
All right. So on that night, I began the live, and I was walking around the container park for a while. And you tuned into it about 40 minutes after it started, and that was at 1:02 a.m. First screenshot that you have. We can put that up on the screen for people. You don't have to show them. But he's got them all on his phone. What? Tell us about it.
A bunch of screenshots, everybody.
Oh, yeah. So you're sitting there at home. You're with Mike and Kendra, but Mark Niemczyk is...
Mike and Kendra were living above Mark Niemczyk at the same complex. Kendra and Michael weren't as in tune as I was because I felt like I was doing something good when I was in belief of their lies.
They thought I was the bad guy.
Taking those screenshots only because I wanted to expose the bad side of you as best as I could based on the information that I had received from Mike and Mark Niemczyk.
This is all background that I just wanted to get through, but I'll let you tell your story in your own words. But,
So
you were sitting there at home. You were on TikTok.
Mike and Kendra weren't as involved.
Well, yeah.
But then it gets to the point between that time frame of 1:52 a.m. and 2:18 when he's walking the rest of the way down Fremont before he gets confronted by the police.
That's right. Handcuffing itself happens at 2:45, or in your phone, it says 2:47, and it begins at 1:02. And you tune in. You tune in at 1:02 a.m. You see the Exposing Mark Niemczyk account is doing a live on TikTok. What did you think?
And based on what I was believing at the time of Mike and Kendra and Mark Niemczyk, that, I was trying to, do what I can. That's why I got those screenshots to collect the evidence that is necessary to, at the time, get you arrested and convicted. Now, main thing it really breaks down to is that time frame 1:52 a.m. again, screenshots, and 2:18. When you were sitting there for a little over 20 minutes or so, in a specific spot, spanning your camera between Walgreens most of the time and the rest of Fremont 4th Street.
Yeah.
Somewhere in between the window block of 1:52 to 2:18, Mike Niemczyk decides to get on the phone and make a phone call. I didn't know at the time who he was calling and I didn't find out until the very next day when I hear that Jonathan Cates was released because the police didn't have any evidence.
So when you noticed that live, you took that screenshot at 1:02, you said to Mike, like, hey, look at this.
In the beginning, I was like, hey, Cates is live, and I popped in and started watching. And a lot of what the Niemczyks were saying is what I was looking for. And I thought I caught it, but it never was exactly what I was lied to about. And I found out after arriving there the next day that there was a point in the window block of 1:52 to 2:18 when John was reporting Walgreens and doing what he was doing, that the person that he was talking to which we found out the very next day was CJ. The person that he was talking to which we found out the very next day was CJ.
So, did you ever talk about trying to get me fired at Walgreens?
Do what?
Justin's not very good.
Okay. I know Mark had brought that up a few times.
Did you show them a fake restraining order?
Showed a fake restraining order, said that you touched a 9-year-old girl's butt. And that's what got you fired.
You tell that too.
CJ?
He told me a few
Security
things
guard
that
order?
led to the arrest or detainment of Jonathan Cates, which ended the life.
Oh, yeah. That's important stuff we can get into later.
So what I found
We
out
have
from
time at the end.
CJ
So at the-
was that Mike Niemczyk had called CJ.
Right.
CJ then gets on his mobile device, whether it was his work or personal, unknown at this time.
And that's the following day.
He not only, after he pointed out where Cates was, CJ admitted that he had made a phone call. And I remember him talking, and he made a phone call to, I guess, which would be the police. And he worded it in a way that, in somebody my level, I call it different, but they called it, he worded it in a way that I can tell it was affiliated to the job title he is.
Right.
And he admitted to me that he had made the phone call that not only led to your ending of the feed,
Told you the
but
next
he
day.
admitted to me that he received a phone call from Michael Niemczyk, and the rest is pretty much explainable at this point.
The next day, which would have also been the 29th.
Yes.
So let's go back to that night, and then we can talk about how CJ, outed himself the next day and said that he took
He's
that
on
call.
Mike and Mark's side.
Yeah. And that goes back.
Michael's buddies with he's on Mike and Mark's side.
Yeah.
And that goes back.
Equals buddies with.
That-
Equals buddies with.
that-
Equals buddies with.